had relapse and his drug of choice was heroin. And I was like, fuck, like, well, hey, let me try it. Like, can I try it?
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Beckoning Brilliance. I'm your host, Becca Booka. Today, we are talking about addiction. After my episode with Allie, I had a lot of people reach out to me saying that they really needed to hear what she had to say about being sober. And so I thought I would dive deeper into the topic. I reached out to my friend Lauren Gillette here in Dallas. She's been sober for 20 years. She is a total free spirit. She's got great energy. And I knew she would have entertaining stories to tell. So we talk about her journey with addiction and sobriety, the 12 steps. We talk about codependency and how you can still live your best life even being substance free. So without further ado, let's get into it. How are you?
So good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I love this.
Of course. I think you are such a great example of a sober person that this sounds maybe kind of shitty, but you're not boring. You're super fun. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is my goal.
But like, I don't know. I think there's a big movement.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think there's a big movement right now, at least in like my peer group, where people are sober curious and they
Sure.
kind of want to quit drinking. So I think
Totally.
but even with me, sometimes I go back and forth with it, especially the older I get. I'm like, I just paid to make myself feel like shit. Like, why am I doing this? You know?
The amount of money I've saved being sober for 20 years, I can't even.
Yeah.
I can't even.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of like waver with it, but in my head, and I think what society kind of tells us is that if you quit drinking, like you're not gonna have friends, you're not gonna be able to go out and have fun. And I don't know. I just love that you live your best fucking life every day.
Fuck yeah. That is my goal. I mean, I did not get sober to just sit around and do nothing, but I understand it's scary. You
Yeah.
know, it's like the cool thing is that in 2023 is that a lot of people are looking at the overall well-being,
Yeah.
you know, in their life. And drinking can fuck some shit up, you know, like it can really mess up your relationships.
Dude. Yeah.
You know, if hopefully people don't have any major consequences, but if you're trying to be healthy and have like a great daily program of exercise and what you eat and just are more like cognizant of your lifestyle, if you're drinking 5 drinks or 3 drink, you know, going out with your friends 3 times a week and just getting shit faced and you feel like shit the next morning, like your incentive to probably get up and go for a walk or go work out is probably down the drain, you know? And every day I wake up and I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that I have a fresh start because really it's like one day at a time, right?
Right.
And I know a lot of people like you that kind of dabble with it or they'll do like the dry January and kind of detox off and which is cool. I'm kind of like I'm all about you do you.
For sure.
You know, like in my life when I was drinking, I drank to numb out. Like I don't remember ever just being a little social drinker. That was like always my goal, but I would have 1 drink and that would lead to 2 and 3 and I literally couldn't stop. And I was a major blackout drinker, so I would wake up the next day and not remember what happened the night before, and that's scary as shit, right?
It is scary.
I mean, one time I thought my car was stolen, and literally it was in the parking lot across the street, and I called the police, like made a report and everything, and I just couldn't find it because it wasn't in my parking garage, and I just forgot I had blacked out, and that's so scary. Like, what if, you know, how many times did I drive in a blackout, right? And by the grace of God or the universe or whatever, I didn't kill someone or kill myself.
For sure.
So there's really a lot of great things about not drinking, you know, and then like for me, there's a difference between not drinking and being in sobriety. You know what I mean? Like you can not drink. Just like my former mother-in-law doesn't drink because she doesn't like to feel out of control. So she's not an alcoholic, but she just doesn't want to drink. You know what I mean? Some people can drink like a drink and be fine and be social, and it kind of takes the edge off. And then, I'm in this 12-step group, and we talk about heavy drinkers. And if you look at a lot of people's college years, you may think, oh my God, she's for sure an alcoholic. But really, she's probably just in a heavy drinker during
Yeah.
this time. You know what I mean? And then, like, people mature out of it and they grow out of it, and then they can kind of like normalize their drinking, but not me. Like, if you're a true alcoholic and you want to stop and you can't stop, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Like, if it's really making your life unmanageable, if you're missing out hanging out with your friends because they're not doing something that involves alcohol, or if, let's say, like, you're nervous about going out and you have to drink to calm your nerves before you can even go out, and then you go out and have all these drinks, and or you like start losing connections with people because people are like, oh shit, she drinks way too much, I don't like how her personality changes,
Mm-hmm.
she becomes a train wreck, I don't want to be around her. Like, that's an issue, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a red flag. When you start losing friends and family,
Uh-huh.
my family wouldn't talk to me. I mean, they were embarrassed. And this all happened by the time I was 20,
I know
21.
you were so young when you
Whew.
realized you had a
Yeah.
problem. I was actually going to ask you that because that's literally something I
Yeah.
wrote down was I think there is a really fine line between in college, like everyone's getting shit faced and
Totally.
drinking until they pass out. And it's after a
Right.
while, it's like, like you said, most people kind of grow out of it and like have more
Yeah.
responsibilities. And then there's like a fine line between like, okay, now you just got a fucking problem, bro. You know?
I know it is a fine line. And like I know so many people that have wine with dinner every night,
Right.
and that's cool. If you're good with that and you can have a glass or two, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a glass and then you need another and another and another, and maybe you drink all the way till you go to bed, that might be a problem. You know what I mean? And
Right.
alcoholism is a disease. And so it's a physical allergy coupled with a mental obsession. So I explain it to my kids because they're like, I have two teenagers and a 9-year-old, and kids are so perceptive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they see that all their friends' parents drink. And they used to ask me, like, Mom, why don't you drink? And I say, well, I'm allergic. Like, I'm truly allergic to alcohol. Like, when I have a drink of alcohol, it processes differently in my system
Mm-hmm.
than someone else's mom. It's kind of like if you have a peanut allergy. Like, if you eat peanut butter, you're going to break out in hives. And in the group I'm in, we say if you drink alcohol, you're going to break out in handcuffs. Um, I mean,
That's a t-shirt waiting to happen. That's a bumper sticker.
woo! We are not a glum lot. I mean, let me just tell you, if you are an alcoholic, you may want to find a 12-step meeting because they're so fun. I mean, we laugh so much. All my best friends are alcoholics for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we are fun people, I'm telling you. We can buck some shit up. And when you hear these stories in there,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, like we just laugh. We nod our head. We're like,
Yeah.
done that. If any other normal person heard this kind of stuff, they would be like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, eyes just like, phew.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But it is different, like now that I'm a mom of three kids, two teenagers. So one of my teens drinks. I don't think she's an alcoholic. I
Yeah.
mean, she comes home a little buzzed. I can't tell if it's like a buzz, a drink, or a buzz from a vape. I don't know. But my son chooses not to drink. And so, when I was younger, since it is a disease, they say that it's carried down through
Yeah.
your DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so usually if someone in your family has it, sometimes they say it skips generations, but you can kind of look back and think, oh, I wasn't raised with the term alcoholic in my family. No one had ever said anything. And so I kind of just thought I could drink people under the table, like,
You're bragging.
oh, I was like, this is my party trick. I was like, fuck all fucking guys, right? Not just women, like,
Mhm.
because I'm not a big
I
person.
was
Like,
like, you're tiny.
I know, but that was my one claim to fame. Like, I will drink your ass under the table. How many shots of tequila do you want to take? Oh yeah, bring it on. And I would, but then I'd probably like fall over, or just
Hmm.
wake up so hungover I couldn't do anything the next day.
Yeah.
Totally not worth it. Not worth those bragging rights. Well, yeah, and so, I never knew the term. I just thought, but God, there'd be times where I would have no money in my bank account, no gas in my car,
Hmm.
but yet I would be driving to the liquor store to get a bottle of wine, literally run out of gas, walk the rest of the way, write a hot check, back in the day when you could write checks, write a hot check because alcohol was more important than my bills, than my home, than my car, than anything. Like
Hmm.
alcohol was my God. It was like my higher power.
Yeah.
It just controlled everything in my life at such a young age. And I think that's when, when you hear that term like unmanageability, my life was revolved around alcohol. That's not normal,
Right. Yeah.
People don't drink a six pack of Diet Coke, like they don't go get a six pack of Diet Coke like, oh, I think I'll have another. I think no, that's psycho. Only alcoholics do that shit.
Yeah. It's interesting that your kids are like, I noticed that you don't drink because I grew up in an
Hmm.
alcoholic household.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, they're so lucky. Like, it's like interesting that like they see you being
Yeah,
sober and they're like, oh, you don't drink. And I'm like, fuck, I wish like my dad didn't drink as a kid.
right.
Like
I
they don't know how good they have
know.
it.
They don't know how good well, they do now. I mean, they see how these parents get. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the volume goes up, and even at their dad's house, he doesn't drink, like he's sober too.
Hmm.
So that's cool. But then, my youngest, her dad is not an alcoholic. He drinks. So his personality doesn't change.
Hmm.
Like you and I grew up with people in our families, their personality changed,
Yeah.
and it would get scary. It's
Walking on
really
eggshells.
scary, for
Yeah.
sure. And addiction shows up in different ways too. Like I have a grandmother, she's turning 99. I can't even believe it. She's in Winnipeg, like not too far from your hood,
Yeah. Yeah.
old hood. She would go to the casino,
Sure.
and she would like sneak out of her house to go to the casino on the Indian reservation and drink her rum and coke. I mean, that was her thing. And she would get mad. She had all the signs,
Hmm.
right? But everyone was just kind of like, oh, that's Grandma Joyce.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Joyce. It's really interesting. And then, like, growing up here in Dallas, I didn't remember like parents having drinking issues, but I just know that when I was in high school, well, okay, I take it back. So in Canada, the drinking age is 18, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
young.
Hmm.
So it was very socially acceptable to drink when I was 15, maybe 14, 15, 16. When we would go up there and spend the whole summer up there, everyone drank that was my age.
Yeah.
And it was when you would like mix the wine coolers and the purple passion and the strawberry, whatever, all that nasty shit together
Yeah.
and chug it.
Ugh.
And I mean, it was sick, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I would come back to Dallas, and not all my friends drank yet. But then when they did, I maybe I'd already started building a tolerance, but I would only hang out with people that drank.
Hmm.
Like all those people that didn't drink, I thought, ew, you're so boring. Like you suck. You're such a dork. I'm not gonna hang out with you.
For sure.
Now I wish I was that person, right? I mean, everything happens for a reason. So
Yeah.
obviously I needed my disease had to get bad when it did.
Hmm.
And then I went to rehab, I think it was 20 or 21, for alcohol.
Hmm.
And in Florida, South Florida, which it was everyone in there was like drug, like hardcore, like heroin, cocaine, meth, crack, you name it. And here I was just a little like, oh, I just drank some wine. I just have a and I was in such denial, of my own stuff. And
Yeah.
the therapist would try to, when you're young, you just think you know it all,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Of
And you're just not,
course.
you're not real open to suggestions.
Sure.
And we would go to this group therapy class, and my therapist would say, Lauren, you're the angriest person in this room. And I was in there with like Jersey guys, New York, all these like hardcore East Coast motherfuckers. And I was like, what? Like I would
Me? Of
dress real cute, and do my hair. And
course.
if I looked good, I was fine. Like that was kind of how I was raised. Like if you look good, everything's okay. Like you don't have a problem. And so they started banning me. They were like, you're not allowed to tan. Like, you're on a tan ban. You're not allowed to work out. You have to wear sweatpants to group, because they were trying to break me down. So when I got out of there, I thought, well, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not a drug addict. Like, I can control my drug use. I've never had an issue,
There's always a rationalizing.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw this hot guy in my meetings. I was like, oh my God, he's so cute. And, one of the suggestions they say is like, don't date for the first year,
Mm-hmm.
because when you stop drinking, doing drugs, whatever, all of a sudden you want something else to fill that void,
Sure.
right? Like, nature abhors a vacuum. We don't like to have this empty space inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have something healthy to fill that, it's real easy to look over shopping, food, exercise, men, I mean, women, doesn't matter, like relationship, just
Yeah.
like something to fill me up. So of course I saw this guy, and I had like 6 months and he had 3, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna help him, and such a good caretaker. And so we started hanging out, and he showed up at my apartment one day, and he was like, not, like nodding off,
Mm-hmm.
like falling asleep, like looked like narcolepsy at
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, his name was George. And I was like, George, what's up? Are you on something? Like, have you done something? First, he was kind of lying about it. And then he confessed that he had relapsed and his drug of choice was heroin. And I was like, fuck, like, well, hey, let me try it. Like, can I try it? Because I'm not a drug addict. And he was like, no, I am not giving in. I was like, fuck you. Like, let me try it. And, it only takes a little bit of that by some cute girl. So he let me try it. And he was like, I'm not letting you shoot it. You can only snort it. And I said, oh, okay. So I started snorting. And of course, like, it's like this, I mean, it just like kind of flows, this like water flowing over you. And it was amazing. And it just set off this trigger, this mental obsession. Like, I need more.
Mm-hmm.
I need more of this. Like, I want that feeling to last. And so within a week, I was shooting heroin because I still had a job at that point. And so I was going to work. I worked at this chiropractor's office. I think this guy, George, maybe he had probably lost his job. So, because such the good codependent that I was buying my drugs, but I was also buying his drugs too, because I had to take care of him, right?
Girlfriend of the year.
Woo! We would go down to Miami and we would get this heroin, and then we would drive back I was living in Delray Beach, and we would do it, and it was so awful. Like, it makes you throw up. It's gross. It's not like a sexy high. This shit
No.
makes you throw up, right? And I thought I could function on it. And mind you, I'd be in the bathroom at work throwing up, and these doctors are probably like, what the fuck is she doing? And pretty soon one of them started giving me cocaine.
Perfect.
So then I was cocaine, and then here. I mean, it was just like, oh. And I would go to my meetings because I had a desire to stop drinking. That's one of the traditions. It's like, as long as you have a desire to stop drinking. And I accepted the fact that I was an alcoholic, right?
Right.
But
you were you were in control of the drugs, right?
I thought I was. So interesting. And so that's why it's kind of like a taboo subject, or kind of like a hot topic about like people in recovery smoking weed.
I was going to ask you about that.
There's certain states where it's legal to smoke weed, right? And I think the justification is, oh, it's, I don't know. I mean, there's just many ways I guess you could do. I personally don't, because I know for me, if I was going to smoke weed, I would want more and more and more and more.
Sure.
Like, it would automatically set off that mental obsession. Even though I didn't like how weed felt, like I was more of like a upper, like I like to have fun, be the party girl, whatever.
Yeah.
And weed was a little too like Debbie Downer for me, but it would still get me out of myself. If I smoked a joint or whatever, it would numb me out. When I got sober, well, my parents found out that I was using heroin by the grace of God. And they came down, they were living in North Carolina, and they came down to Florida, and they did an intervention on me with my therapist from my treatment center. And they basically said, look, like, if you don't go back to treatment, then you're on the street. And I just knew I wasn't cut out for the street. Thank God,
Yeah.
right? I mean, some people fucking can and they're survivors. And I know that I'm a survivor, but I don't think I would have survived that shit. I would be dead.
Yeah.
If I had been like, fuck you, I'm out. Because that was kind of my usual answer when someone tried to confront me or like tell me what to do. I was basically like, fuck you, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
My whole life. Pretty COVID, fuck you, I'm out. I mean, woo, story of my life.
That's that Aries energy.
I know, right? Woo, I'll burn your shit down. Don't fuck with me.
For sure.
Um, So I don't know what it must have. I think I just had this spiritual awakening at
Mm-hmm.
that time. I was 22 probably. I just thought, okay, I'll go back in. And so I went back in. And, that tough love is so hard. I cannot, it is really, it's one thing to tell your teenager, oh, you're not allowed to go to a party because your grades aren't good or you're grounded for the weekend. But when your child is an adult
Mm-hmm.
and but really can't support themselves, like I guess if you're an addict or an alcoholic, you're so sick, like you're not capable of really making a rational decision,
Mm-hmm.
which is the perfect time to really, if there's someone that and they come to you and they're really fucked up, they did something really bad the night before, they're really in a lot of pain and say like, I think I have a problem with drinking or I think I have a problem with using, that is the perfect opportunity to say, you know what, you don't have to live like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get some help and you can either, go to meetings are free.
Yeah.
And there's meetings all over the world, which are so awesome. And personally for me, I need that community support.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way I could have done it on my own because I like to be around like-minded people. When I go to a meeting and I sit down in that chair, it's like these people get me,
Right.
and I grew up in a big family. I'm the oldest of five and my parents were still together. And so there's always a lot of people, but I never felt like I belonged to my own family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to be around people that I connected with. They say that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And I think when I heard that, I thought, oh my God, that's so spot on.
I saw that you wrote that on your Instagram, and I had never thought about it that way. So I was going to ask you, like, what things do you do to consciously connect with people then?
Well,
What?
for me, it's like addiction is so isolating,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this isolating disease that tells you that no one understands. So fuck it. Fuck it. Just go back to drinking. Like, go back to using. Like, you don't need anyone. And that's when you kind of start spiraling down, right? And so I started, when I got sober, I would force myself to go to meetings. Even when I didn't want to go is when I really needed to go. Just to be around. For me, it was harder picking up that phone and talking to people, and still is. Like, I would rather be in a face-to-face connection, like even when COVID hit and all meetings were shut down. Zoom, thank God, came on, and that's how alcoholics and addicts around the world were able to connect with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a great tool, and it still is. Like, I still know people that love Zoom. And even there's a lot of shame around addiction too, right?
Yeah.
And when you're getting sober and admitting you're a problem, and oh my gosh, what if I go to a meeting and I run into someone I know? So some people feel more comfortable going on a Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be in a room full of people because they're not ready for that, which is so cool that we have this.
Right.
But as soon as the rooms open back up, like I was there, I just needed to be around my people. I love to drink coffee. I am a coffee addict. So as soon as I put down alcohol and drugs, I was already drinking coffee. Like, I think I started drinking coffee when I was 14.
Uh-huh.
My mom would drive me to school as a freshman, but we'd stop at Starbucks on the way and I'd get my latte with
Mm-hmm.
I was already getting extra shots. I love that the programs that I'm in have coffee. Um, But I also love meeting other people for coffee. It's almost a social lubricant just to have something in your hand, right?
100%.
Yeah, and so so I'll tell you, when I first got sober, I wasn't ready to go back out. I wasn't comfortable being around the bars. And actually, I tested that out and I went out with some girlfriends that I worked with at the time. They invited me out and I wanted to fit in. And so I said, sure. And I was too embarrassed to say that I didn't drink. And so as soon as someone offered me a drink, I drank it.
Yeah.
And then I had I was off to the races that night. So that shit happens. And it's like, it's okay, right? You just, every day's a new opportunity to start again.
Hmm.
So I try to tell people, like, just keep coming back. Like if you screw up, like, it doesn't fucking matter. With anything in life, right? Like, we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that through the years, like, as I've learned to love myself, I've learned to be gentler on myself. And so when I screw up, it's like not the end of the world, right?
Hmm.
So I had a couple little slips when I was first getting sober, but it taught me, like, okay, obviously I'm not ready for this shit.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I need to, it's like they say, if you're hanging out in the barbershop, eventually you're going to get a fucking haircut,
Yeah.
right? So, but if I'm spiritually fit and if I'm at a place in my sobriety and my life that I feel serene and like peaceful
Hmm.
and whole, then I can do anything I want sober. So I
Yeah.
can go to a bar today and meet you there, and you have a cocktail, and I have a Diet Coke with a lime.
Hmm.
Or a lot of people drink club soda
Yeah.
with a lime,
Yeah.
because it's a little fancier.
Right.
It just having something in your hand makes you feel kind of like a part of,
Hmm.
right? Like makes you feel a little bit connected.
Right.
Because otherwise you're like, well, like we can't smoke indoors anymore. We can't remember. We used to do that. It was
I know.
crazy. Oh, we used to smoke on airplanes, right?
I don't remember
Were
that.
you around then?
No. I think I'm a little too young for that, but I do remember smoking in restaurants for sure. I was
Yeah,
always like, all right,
right.
on my second cig, my meal's gonna be out. I had it like timed out.
Yeah,
So
I
gross.
know.
So nasty.
God, like you just want to feel a part of, right?
Yeah.
It's like that connection. And like I remember being in middle school and coming home and being like, Mom, I need the newest like Guess jeans that you can pinch roll up the side, like I need to. And my mom would be like, Lauren, you go to school for an education, not a fashion show. And
Hmm.
it broke my heart
Yeah.
because that was like my thing. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to be cool and I wanted to have cool style and I wanted to be like everyone else.
Hmm.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Like it's tricky being sober and I don't get invited to a lot of stuff. It used to hurt my feelings. Like I did go through this period of my sobriety where it was like a grief period,
Yeah.
right? Like cuz I kind of grew up sober, so I got sober for the last time when I was 24. And so I've lived the last 20 years sober. And you go through a lot of stuff in your life in those years, and a lot of it is revolves around social
Right.
networking and friends, and if you get married or don't get married, but if you have kids, or everyone kind of like gauges everyone by a lot of stuff revolves around alcohol,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? If you're kind of questioning like whether or not you have a problem, it might just be a good time to kind of like spend some extra hours at the gym.
Hmm.
Like maybe don't tempt yourself by going to those situations when you're not ready yet.
Hmm.
Because the likelihood, unless you're so confident and secure in your own self, which some people are, and that's amazing. But if you're not, like the majority of us, I think, there's other things to do. Like go meet someone for dinner or do something fun. Like I love bowling. Do you ever go bowling?
I don't really.
I suck, dude. I suck so bad, but I think it's so fun. They have all these fancy bowling alleys now too that have like great food and great drinks even.
Okay.
And I mean, the shoes are a little bit like need some improvement. I'd love like a platform bowling shoe. That'd be so cute. We're not there yet, obviously. But, stuff like that. Like, I think laughter and having fun is so important in life,
Hmm.
right? No matter what age you are, because we never know when our time is up,
This is true.
right? Like, we never fucking know. And my mom passed away 2 years ago. She was the healthiest person I knew. We had no cancer in our family.
Wow.
Worked out all the time, didn't really drink. I never thought she was going to die, ever. And she ended up getting breast cancer, and it took her body, it took everything from her. And it was a great lesson for me to really, it's that YOLO saying, like you only live once.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent a lot of time in contemplation during those days. Like when she was sick, I thought, wow, like what do I want to do with my life? Like what do I want it to look like? And where are the areas that I've held myself back? Like where have I had this fear of like traveling by myself?
Mm-hmm.
I always used to think it's like I would make these stories up in my head. Like I couldn't travel anywhere unless I was with a partner, like my husband or like my kids or my family, because that's how I was raised. There weren't a lot of solo travelers unless it was for work or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I booked my first solo trip, I was like, holy shit. Like I got all this anxiety,
Yeah.
but it was more like excitement,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And just now, I've realized how much I love myself and my alone time.
That's amazing.
Peace. Fucking on an airplane, I'm like, I put my AirPods in. I'm like, don't talk to me. No one talk to me for the next 10 hours.
Yeah.
It was like so relaxing and
Mm-hmm.
so amazing. I have my books and all my stuff, and I went on this trip, and at first it was weird. I was like, oh my God. And I'm in this foreign country, and no, I mean, people maybe they speak a little bit of English, but
Where'd you go?
I went to Spain.
Oh, nice.
Well, actually, no, I take it back. So my first solo trip, I went to Sedona,
Oh, nice. I love
and it was
Sedona.
super. I know, right?
Love
Oh,
Sedona.
crystals. Woo,
Oh,
crystals.
for Texas.
Woo! My first solo international trip was Spain.
Okay.
And I woke up before everyone else because obviously I'm, on Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really used to this. And I went up to the rooftop and of course, had a cappuccino, right?
Obviously.
Obviously, hobby. So I'm looking around just like, oh my God, this is so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in this other country by myself, and I just felt so happy and so full of joy and so full of life. Like, I had no agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like a super scheduled out person. For me, I work better just with flexibility in my schedule and my day. And I just sort of was like, okay, I'm going to put my tennis shoes on. I'm going to put some shorts and the tank top on, and I'm going to go walk, and I'm just going to go explore.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing everyone else in their element in different countries, or different cities. It's like I'm such an observer, and I didn't really realize how much I love to be curious about people and life. And, of course, like fashion and style and all that, I love too. Just to see how people interact with other people, how like at a cafe, like two people talking and they're so animated, and are they on their phone? Some countries they are on their phone, other countries they're not on their phone. It's like every culture is different,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so fascinating to me. It just kind of lights me up. Sometimes I do go to meetings in foreign countries too, because I think it's super cool,
Yeah.
and we're all there for the same reason. And so even if I don't speak the language, you kind of get the same feel.
Sure.
And I'm really proud to say, like, hi, I'm Lauren, I'm from Texas, and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it's always something fun for me. But I don't always do it too either. Like I always, thank God we have the internet, right? And there's
Right.
like so many different ways to access information.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm feeling kind of squirrely, I'll use the word squirrely, but like usually that shows up as anxiety. I'm feeling like I'm different. It's like that those old triggers come in like, oh, I'm different. I don't fit in. I'm scared. Whatever that old stuff is that is triggering me, that's when I kind of like need to just kind of like decompress. And that's when I go into, like my spiritual literature, or, find a speaker series to listen to, or just to connect. Like there's so many ways to connect to that part of me that needs to be soothed at a soul level. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it makes total sense. Everything that you were describing when you were traveling about all the joy that you felt and how much you like to observe things, I was like, oh my gosh, you probably didn't even realize that about yourself when you were drinking. I feel like you
No.
just cut so much of your soul off when you are constantly under the influence. I did want to talk to you about. So I've been to Al-Anon meetings, but I have never been to like a
Yeah.
12-step or anything or AA meeting. I
Uh-huh.
guess I didn't realize like how much of a presence God is in the 12 steps. So I feel like that could potentially be like another deterrent for people, like if they were to look into it, because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of resistance to God. And like listening to the other podcasts that you've done, you talk a lot about God, and I know that you're very spiritual. So I guess I kind of wanted to know, like, was that a new thing for you to implement God into your life when you started getting sober?
Such a great question. And you don't know how many people I talk to about this. So the cool thing is this the 12-step program that I go to, it's the God of your understanding.
Okay,
So there's a huge difference between religion and
of
spirituality.
course.
Not everyone knows that, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
People say, like, I was in a meeting yesterday and this guy, he's 80
Okay.
and he's just realized he's an alcoholic. And
Oh.
so it was like his first meeting, and he said, and the topic was spirituality, prayer, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I've been going to church my whole life. I'm Presbyterian. I love my church. And he said, but the biggest difference was he realized that he did not have a connection to God.
Yeah.
So religion is organized, and religion, churches provide this amazing fellowship, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a place to go and belong. But if you don't have a connection to to a power greater than yourself, who I choose to call God,
Mm-hmm.
you may call it Jesus. You may call it a doorknob. It doesn't fucking matter. No, like that's a really big deal
Yeah.
because it could be a deterrent. And so that's why when they made the 12 steps, they were very clear because they wanted it to be accessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of atheists out there. There's a lot of agnostics out there who are alcoholic, and they did not want them to feel like they didn't belong in the
Yeah.
rooms. So it's very important that people feel comfortable when they go to a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and groups. I got sober in North Carolina, and they would say the J word, Jesus.
Oh, I was like, what's the
And
J word?
well, you're not allowed to say that because
Why?
to me that's religious.
Oh, okay.
It's like you're not allowed. You can say that, but it could be offensive to someone.
But did they say
And
God? Did they say God though?
yeah, people can say God,
What's it?
but because Jesus is religious. Like to me, Jesus is an ascended master.
Okay.
That's how I view Jesus.
Okay.
But God is my higher power.
Okay.
Like I just associate, but people do share. They say, "Well, my higher power," or I started really feeling a connection to a power greater than myself.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have to label it.
Sure.
It's like the problem with addiction is like we give alcohol all this power,
Yeah.
and so when we put that down, we realize that we are powerless over alcohol, but we have to get our power back, right?
Yep.
And so the way we get our power back is that it's like such a paradox. We get our power back by giving it away to a higher, something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know it's kind of
No,
confusing,
that makes sense.
but you can label it whatever you want.
Sure.
And so when I've sponsored women and men, like I have sponsees who are guys who are gay. Usually it's like women want to go with
Mm-hmm.
women or guys want to go unless you're gay, and like then you might feel more comfortable with that. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right?
You'd be the
Um,
coolest sponsor, by the way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It makes me so fucking happy to help other people get it. When I see the light come on and I see like glimmers of hope in someone's eyes, it makes me light up. It's like a win-win,
Yeah.
right? There's chapters, like I sponsor people out of this book book. We call it the big book,
Hmm.
right? And there's chapters that talk all about it. There's one called We Agnostics. And the cool thing is, like, they give all different examples and all different stories, people's personal experience, because I think that's what really builds trust in someone else. Like, if I'm talking to someone and they have no idea what they're talking about, but they're just giving me lip service, I'm not going to trust you. But if you've been through it, if you've walked through the fire and you've come out the other side, I am like, holy shit, that's fucking that gives me hope
Yeah,
that I can too,
100%.
you know? So that's the cool thing about it. And also one thing I want to say too is that, like, I choose to go to meetings because they work for me, but that's not everyone's choice,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's all different ways to do this deal and to maintain a life of sobriety,
Hmm.
right? I knew for me, I need to do, it's kind of like, have you heard of functional medicine doctors?
Hmm.
Okay, so functional medicine doctors, they go for the root.
Yeah.
Like, they don't just put a band-aid over the problem,
Correct.
okay? So that's what, like, the 12-step programs do for me. It's like, what is the root cause? Why did I want to drink in the first place? Because if it's not alcohol and drugs, it's going to be something else. So I've got to heal the wound.
Yeah.
And to do that, you've got to rip the scab off,
Right.
right? Like, you've got to rip the scab off. You've got to expose the wound to some sort of air.
Hmm.
And the safest place to do that is with someone that you really trust, like another person. Because otherwise, like, I'm up in my head, so I can rationalize the shit out of anything, right?
Same.
Right.
Hmm.
So I need that accountability from someone else.
Hmm.
I need someone to call me on my shit. Really important.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people do. I'm telling you, I have this gift. I can get away with a lot of stuff. It's crazy. It's kind of awesome, but it's fucking crazy at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna call me on my shit, I'm gonna respect the hell out of you,
Hmm.
right? And I'm gonna trust you. And so because one of my defaults is denial. I can get into this denial loop because that's how it was in my family.
Hmm.
Even when my mom got sick, it was like we all kind of went into this denial. And I think every family has their own story or has their own sort of like cape that they put on to make themselves feel better,
Right.
right? And so sometimes I can't see my own stuff. So it's really important for me to work with someone that can see, or a lot of times I don't give myself enough credit. So one of my first sponsors, it was actually an Al-Anon, and she had me write down all the great things that I did that day because I was beating myself up. So I was going through this really hard time in my life. I was going through my first divorce and I had two little kids.
Mm.
I was a single mom living at home with my parents who, they say like our parents push our buttons so easily because they're the ones that installed them, right? So it's like all day long. And I'm like just going crazy. And I would call her up and be like, I am fucking going crazy, or I was just down in this like depressive spiral, but I didn't want to drink and I didn't want to use but my primary focus at the time was just relationships with people.
Hmm.
Like that's what Al-Anon does. It like helps you with all your relationships with other people
Yeah.
and it makes them not so glaring. Made me not take everything so fucking personally.
Hmm.
But I was such a doormat to other people. I had a really hard time setting boundaries, saying no, all the
Hmm.
things, right? I would just let people yell at me or treat me like shit or like whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for you. And I had no self-esteem and self-worth. And so in order to start helping me build that again, she would have me write down, it was like homework, like write down three things that you did great this day. Write down three things that you did as a mom or like self-care or it was I needed to see that shit on
Yeah.
paper. Like, oh, maybe I am not as bad. Maybe I'm better than I thought I was. Like maybe I do have a sense of value and a sense of purpose
Hmm.
in this life. And it was all these little tiny tools that I started learning that really have like snowballed into this amazing woman that I am today. It's like
Yes.
I don't it is not easy to do the work, but when you do the work, it's like anything. Like the more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
Hmm.
And I think it's just been such an incentive for me to keep growing.
Yeah.
Like I realize like But I didn't know who I was when I got sober. Like I would literally have to write down like, oh my God, I like stripes. Oh my God, I love white jeans. Like I didn't know my style. Because I was a chameleon my whole life. Whatever you wanted me to be, that's who I would be.
Yeah,
I would show up as that
for
girl.
sure.
Oh, he likes hot chicks that wear bikinis. I'm fucking showing up in a Lurex fucking hot pink bikini. Like, hey boys. Um, whatever you want to. So I didn't know who I was for myself. Like who is Lauren
Yeah,
Gillette? And it's been such a process to figure out like who I am as a woman, as a being, as a soul, as a mother. Like, am I a bitch? Am I kind? Am I fun? Am I joy? I've really realized like what an introvert I am in the last few years. I'm like an extroverted
yeah,
introvert, you know? Like I get lit up around people, but
the
also
right
it
people.
drains my energy.
Mm,
The right people, thank
yeah,
you. But it can also drain my energy too. So then I have to go home and just like decompress and like be by myself.
really.
And I accept that about myself today. You know, I used to think like,
Yeah,
oh, I always had to be on, I always had to be around people, and extroverts are cooler than introverts. Like, no, not necessarily. Introverted bitches are cool too.
hell yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, right? Shit.
Well, I feel like and also like you being extroverted, I'm sure that was also a distraction from facing yourself
Yeah,
too. I was gonna,
for
yeah,
sure.
I was gonna say earlier. So I think for me, the more that I've worked on myself, the more I've healed myself and learned to love myself, the less I even want to drink because I don't need that escape. I don't need
Mm,
to numb myself out anymore. And I feel like a lot of people are
right.
scared to look at themselves and to do that kind of work that you have put in. And yeah, it's all very confronting.
It is. It's very confronting, but I found like the path to freedom for me has been through
Yeah.
self-honesty. And it's hard. And it's really hard to stand up for your truth when society says you should look like
Hmm.
this, but you know in your soul that it looks like this.
Yeah,
Like that's kind of it takes
it
courage,
does.
right? Like it takes a lot of courage. But at the same time, I'm kind of like loving this new role that I'm in where I am different than everyone else. Like
Right.
it kind of feels good.
And honestly, I know you kind of are like a little bit of a rebel. I feel like it's almost more rebellious to go against like
I love
what
it.
everyone is doing. Like it's more
Exactly. I
rebellious
think
to
that's
like,
like
not drink and like follow God and, stand on your own two
right.
feet.
Like
Yeah.
exactly. I love it actually. I love to be different. And I don't know if I told you this story, but my 9-year-old was like, Mom, can you just dress like all the other moms around here, please? And I was like, are you fucking, that's my worst nightmare. I don't want to dress like all the other
I'm
cookie
showing
cutter
up in that
moms. Like
bikini
that,
again.
oh,
I'm
hell
just
yeah.
kidding.
Like if you got it, flaunt
For
it.
sure.
Um,
Well, touching on the codependency topic, that's something that I have definitely struggled with and that I've like tried to get over
yeah.
as well. I feel like you really have to take your power back because there was actually something that you said in the podcast that you did. You were talking about one of your exes and you were saying that I think you were sober at the time and he was still drinking or he was still using drugs and you said it was his disease but I was taking it on. And I was like, oh my gosh, that like resonates like so much with me. And I think a lot of people like fall into the codependency, especially women. It's like we want to try to fix everyone. And now that I'm away from that situation and looking back on it, it's like, oh my gosh, it was just like another form of distraction where I didn't want to focus on myself and the shit that I was doing and what I was contributing to the relationship. It's like, you're the one that has the problem. Like, let me just focus on you. And I think that Al Anon really helped me to realize, like, you can't fucking change anyone and you can't make them do anything that they don't want to do and they're not ready to do. So I feel like Al Anon,
Right.
like, really helps you to take your power back as well.
Yeah, they call it the PhD program because it's
Yeah.
hard. It's really hard because I think, again, like we grow up in society as the
Yeah.
caretakers. Like we're supposed to help everyone. We're supposed to be nurturing. We're supposed, like all that feminine energy.
Hmm.
And when I was able to accept that I could not change someone else, I couldn't control anyone's, I wasn't the cause of other people's problems. I can control. Like I used to think, oh my God, if I just use the right tone of voice in this conversation, then that person will do what I want them to do.
Right.
Or why doesn't that fucking like if everyone would just do what I want them to do, the world would be a better place, right? Like
Right.
sometimes I can still fall into that
Uh,
trap. God, because I know best. Like, duh, hello.
obviously.
Jesus. You know what's so cool now? I actually like can see myself as this little bird and I sit on the fence and I just observe like, okay, you try it that way and see if it's going to work out for you. Maybe it will, but maybe it won't. I have to do this with my
Hmm.
teenagers. You know, they're 16 and 17 and I feel like we've given them all the tools. We've given them a lot of tools. And now they're getting ready to transition into
Hmm.
adulthood, you know? And it's like in everything with everything in life, like you're gonna try new things, but you're also gonna fail. And those failures really are good for you because you learn like what works and what doesn't work, right? And so with the codependency, it was like damn it, it's that insanity, like trying to do the same thing over and over and expecting different
Hmm.
results. Well, this time it'll be different. This time I'm going to answer the phone on time, or this time I'm going to use this tone of voice, or this time I'm going to be so cute and how can they, resist me and whatever. Like, no, shit doesn't work like
Yeah.
that. Like, it's a really hard pill to swallow that we are not in control of other
Yeah.
people. They are going to do what they're going to
Hmm.
do. And there's a cool saying that I learned in Al Anon that goes, people are not doing it to you, they're just doing it. So people are not like the person that's driving. I'm actually not a road rager. Are you a road rager?
Not in Texas. No. In Minnesota,
Right.
yes. Here, no. I'm like,
Are
I'm gonna
you?
get
Why
shot.
is that? Is it because it's too cold up there? Oh, the
Oh
gun.
no, everyone.
People are stressed.
People are so fucking aggressive here, which in Minnesota I felt like I was more aggressive, and I'm like everyone's so slow, and now I'm like chilling in the right lane. I feel like I'm gonna die every day when I'm on the road, so I'm not honking at
Really?
anyone.
I'm like you. Well, maybe I'm just more chill. I'm just like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, go in front of me. That's fine. I believe in karma, so that's like my good deed for the day. Like, I'll let you
Yeah.
in. Someone will let me in down an hour later,
Uh-huh.
whatever. I'm trying to, I guess, like, it's kind of hard, can be hard with kids, realizing that I can't control, like, I've never lived my life through my kids either.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tricky thing that I think some parents like try to live vicariously through their
Yes.
kids. I have never tried to pick out what they're gonna wear, never tried to control their friend group. All these are examples of other moms, psycho moms that I see around my neighborhood. Like they do this all day long and it just totally backfires on
Yeah.
them. And maybe that's why I'm in a better position now to kind of like let my kids fly
Mm-hmm.
away, fly. In my relationships, I guess that's where it's really been a tricky thing for me.
I was gonna say I think
Um,
relationships are what trips me up the most for
so
sure.
hard,
Yeah.
right? Because I have so much knowledge. I have so much knowledge. If you just listen to me,
Is it hard for you to date also like being sober, especially in Dallas? Dallas, I feel like there's not a lot of nature here. I feel like there's not a lot of things to do that don't revolve around drinking.
I'm very upfront about
Yeah.
it. Because if you can't be with me because I don't drink, then I don't need to be
Yeah,
with
of
you.
course.
You know what I mean? Like that's the deal. I don't even think it's a
Yeah.
factor. Like because I'm at such a place in my life where I can do things that where there's alcohol. Like I have one sister that is sober too, but the rest of my family
Hmm.
drinks. My brothers don't really drink by choice, but their wives do, and so I'm always around alcohol, but it doesn't bother
Yeah.
me because I'm secure. Like I wake up every single day and have acceptance that I'm an alcoholic and I can't drink. So I'm not wavering about that. You know what I mean? And if someone is wavering about that, then that's a little trickier, I
For sure.
think. But it's like it goes back to you just have to be so crystal clear about your choices one day at a time. Like all we have is today, right? And so this morning, am I going to eat sugar today? This is where it comes in for me because I love sugar.
Sugar and coffee.
I tell myself in the morning, like, okay, I'm not going to eat sugar
Hmm.
today. Do you know my longest period with no sugar is 8 days? That's it, Becca. Only
Okay,
eight
but sugar's
days.
in everything. To your credit.
Well, but I'm not talking about like I mean, I love fruit, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like dates, I love dates,
But even
whatever.
in like
There's a high sugar
even in
content.
like sauces and stuff like that, like it's
I
hidden in a
know.
lot of
So
things.
I know. I try to be mindful about it. I don't, I had eating disorders when I was a
Yeah.
teenager too. So I kind of really have to, my addiction can show up anywhere, like I've
Hmm.
said. So I try to be mindful, but not controlling.
Sure.
Because I see people out there, they get controlling about food. And that to me would make my life
Hmm.
unmanageable. Like I want to find joy in every
Yeah.
day, right? So really I give myself grace. Like if I screw up, like I try not to have rules on
Hmm.
myself. Meaning like if there's something serious going on and I have a serious health issue where I really shouldn't be, if I'm like type 2 diabetes or whatever, where I can't eat sugar, that's one other
Right.
thing. I'm so healthy. Like, I live my life with balance, you
Hmm.
know? Like, I eat sugar whenever I
Yeah.
want because I work out every day, or, like I run or I do Pilates or whatever brings me joy. Like, I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday and I said, because she's a yoga teacher at one of those crazy studios. I said, "Do you eat sugar?" And she doesn't drink
Yeah.
either. And she was like, "Yeah, I eat ice cream every night." She's like, "That's what I look forward to in my day." And I thought, that's
Yeah.
cool. I can do that. Like it's all about balance,
Hmm.
right? Like if there's something that doesn't feel good that I'm doing, I need to look at the why. Like why? What is underneath that? Usually it's some sort of fear. Fear of losing what I have or fear of not getting what I want. Those are like my major drivers in life.
So do you go to meetings every day?
If I can, I
Good
do.
for you.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. It fills me
Hmm.
up. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't. For me, it's like an act of service
Hmm.
too, showing
Yeah.
up for other people. Because if there's newcomers in there and I have an opportunity to meet them, like which one, like when I first got sober and I met someone that was even 5 years sober, even 90 days, like that's
Hmm.
huge. And for me, I have 20 years. Like, whoa, I want to always give people hope that I want to be a good example of sobriety.
That's interesting to think about. Because
Hmm.
I don't know, like I said, I'm not sober, but I would imagine that I think after a while I would be like, I don't need to go to meetings anymore, like I'm fine.
I
But
know they
it's so
say
that's interesting to
that.
hear that you still go as often as you do.
I love it. Yes. And it's almost more important for
Yeah.
me. The further away I get from that last
Hmm.
drink, the more important it is for me to see people, new people, because it's a great reminder of what it was
For sure.
like. Because they say when I'm in a meeting, my disease is doing push ups in the parking lot. Because it's a progressive disease. So if I was to start drinking, it would be like I never
That's
stopped.
so
And
wild.
that's scary. Isn't
And
it?
that
It's scary as
that's
shit.
so scary. And also the thing that always also makes me go like, what the fuck, is that you like an addict is emotionally stunted at whatever age they were when they started drinking or started using drugs.
Right.
That's
Right.
so it's interesting. But then whenever I deal with an addict, I'm like, yep, I'm definitely talking to a fucking 13
Yeah,
year old right now. Or,
I know. But it also gives me compassion too. Like, you know what? They're
yeah.
sick. They are sick. And that's one cool thing too about these steps, working all the steps and like really getting down to the nitty gritty and like healing your stuff is like all of a sudden I started looking at the world with so much more
Mhm.
compassion. People that were so angry or so depressed or so insecure, I thought, you know what, Lauren, they are doing the best they can with what they know right now, And it just let me kind of give other people
Yeah.
grace, because otherwise I'd walk around maybe pissed off. Like, so and so's not doing it right. Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Lauren, this is their journey. Like, everyone, I'm not God,
Yeah.
right? I'm not other people's higher power. I have no idea what other people's journey looks like.
Yeah.
And that's something really that I need to remember every day.
I have a hard time
Mm-hmm.
knowing whether to this might sound kind of shitty. People that I've been in relationships with, it's like at what point am I giving up on them even if they're like, being shitty towards me? Like at what point am I like, okay, I want to be there for you, but like it's killing me, but then I also like don't want to give up on them. I don't know, that like that's always hard for me as far as like giving people grace. And like I know that everyone has their journey. It's like do I what at
Mm-hmm.
what point can I opt out of that journey though? if it's
I think anytime when, like, if it's affecting me negatively, that's when I opt
mhm.
out. Because the way I see it is that we all have our own higher powers
Yeah.
walking this life with
Mhm.
us. So I have my own, you have your own, my kids each have their own. And so, and my family members each have their
Mhm.
own. Like, I need to stay right sized. It's like a big dose of
Mhm.
humility because I don't know, ultimately, I don't know what's best for you.
Yeah.
You have to walk through your stuff to get to where, because otherwise it may not be authentic,
Right. Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And it's crazy because, like, when you're with people that are struggling and something really bad happens to them, you're like, oh shit, this is it. Like, they've hit their
Yeah.
bottom. Well, not necessarily. How many times have you said
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? I said it all the time. Like, oh my God, of course there's their bottom. Like, how can you fucking go lower than this?
Right.
And then they scrape that shit off the floor and they keep going, and you're like, what? They maybe keep going for another two
Yeah.
years. Like, we just don't
Right.
know. We don't know what other people's journey looks
Mhm.
like. And I had to go through everything I went through to get where I am today. All the terrible stuff. I mean, I went through some horrible stuff. Like, I should be dead over and over and over. But I had to go through it so that I could be the person I am today. And ultimately, everything that I've gone through, I'm able to use to help someone else through that experience because someone could be really suffering. And I'm like, you know what, babe, like, I went through that too. I've been there, I've been in your shoes. I know what that feels like, and you don't have to live like that
Right.
anymore. Or you can get through this situation. Or, oh my God, I know it must feel so scary because I've been
Mhm.
there. I've faced like a loved one having a terminal illness, or, that's a cool thing about like meeting all these people in my
Mhm.
meetings, all my friends, is because anything that I go through, I can find someone else who's been through
Yeah.
it. And that gives me so much hope
Right.
and so much
Mhm.
connection, right? And it's like, usually, like, I believe in the law of attraction, right? And so people are put in our lives for a
Mhm.
reason. And it's usually so either we have an opportunity to help them or they have an opportunity to help us,
Yeah.
which is so
Right.
cool. When people irritate the shit out of me, it's something, it's like, have you heard that saying, one finger is pointing towards you, but three fingers are pointing back at me? Because I'm always the problem. It's the Taylor Swift song.
Um
I am the problem.
It's me.
It
Yeah.
is. It's me. It's always
Yeah.
me. It's never you. It's me.
Yeah.
The reason I'm struggling is because there's something within me that I'm not at peace with.
Mhm.
You're just doing your
Yeah.
thing. Like, you do you, boo. It's always
Yeah.
me. It's like such, I don't know. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but it's the fucking truth.
Right. So
I
I know that
know.
you also do it's more than life coaching, but you do like energy work, you do Akashic record work with people.
I started getting into this spiritual world. I started really like seeking maybe 3 years ago. And I was invited to attend this like meditation class. And I've always been into like astrology and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I think it was like a full moon and it was outdoors during COVID. And it was like this deal where it was like, write down everything you want to release. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I wrote it all down, and then it was like a big bonfire, and we like burned it. And, I'm an Aries, so I love fire, like, whoa. Um, and I started talking to these people, and I was like, oh my God, like, how did you get to where they were just like, they just kind of glowed,
Mhm.
right? And they all had like a Reiki background or energy healing or Akashic, like all these terms. Like, I just started listening to all these terms and hearing, and I was like, I asked a friend, I was like, where do you start with all this? Like, how do you get into this? Because I was so intrigued. Because I consider myself a healer. Like, I've always been an
Mhm.
empath. And when I realized that I love working with other people and I love seeing the light come on in their eyes. Like I realized that I have this gift of helping other people, you know, through my experience usually, but it's like when I realized that I love to connect with nature and I love anything mystical, kind of like lights me up. And so I just went down this path of seeking, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like, what are the Akashic records? And I learned that it's like a library of our soul's journeys. And so if you believe in past lives and future lives, and, you know, there's a whole deal, because when I first heard that, I was like, what the fuck is that? I'd never heard of it
Mm-hmm.
before. And I Googled it and I was like, oh my God, this is so
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. So then I started taking classes and I learned how to read my own records. And then and you can kind of go in and like heal pieces of yourself at a DNA level, which is so fascinating because a lot of our stuff is repeated through
Mm-hmm.
generations and we don't even know how. Like, how does that
Yeah.
happen? Like, how if I grew up, there's people I know that grew up in an alcoholic household where their parents didn't drink. But it's still an alcoholic household because it's all the isms, it's all the behaviors, it's all the stuff, the stories were passed down through
Mm-hmm.
generation. But that's like almost, we hold these things at a cellular level, right? So it's passed down through our DNA. And so, how do we heal that? Well, we're able to jump back through timelines and we're able to see things that maybe in a past lifetime still affect us today because we haven't healed that part of ourselves. And it's so fascinating to me. And so I started diving in and really get curious about it. And I thought, wow, like this is just another tool in my toolbox that I can help other
Mm-hmm.
people. You know, so many people go to therapy and I have friends that are therapists. I have a
Mm-hmm.
therapist that I love. But sometimes it doesn't, I found that it couldn't hit
Yeah.
everything. Even all my 12 steps, it couldn't hit everything. And so I really got into this energy healing and chakra system, and like everything is energy. And now even doctors in the medical community is working with people that practice energy healing because when we give our bodies want to be at homeostasis, right? Our bodies are so smart. So they want to be at peace. And sometimes we need to give them a little bit of extra information so that they can find that. And you can't just get it, like a lot of times you can't just know it. You know what I mean? Like you have to, for me personally, it's like I have to learn from an outside resource, or I go into my own Akashic records and download information that allows me to heal. And so there's a book called Heal Your Body, and it talks about the energetics of
Mm-hmm.
psychosomatic illness and how stuff shows up in different parts of it. Like if I know that the left side of my body represents the past and the right side is the future, and my left knee
Mm-hmm.
starts hurting, well, what does that mean? Something from the past is preventing me from moving forward because our joints are all about forward momentum,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like, what can we dig into? What needs to be unearthed, what needs to be uncovered to heal that so that we can move forward in our
Mm-hmm.
life. And literally I think it was like maybe it was my left knee. I sat down, I was running one day and I sat down on this bench because my left knee had been killing me for
Mm-hmm.
months. And that's the story I was telling myself. My left knee hurts, my left knee hurts, my left knee hurts. So I sat down on this bench and I was like, okay, I'm going to call in this golden white light, and I literally used my mind to suck out whatever tension, whatever, and negative energy was in my knee, and bring in this like beautiful golden white light. I got up. It was like I was one of those woo woo healers. I got up and I stopped telling myself that story in my head that my knee hurts. I started saying, I'm healed. My body's healed. It's like, I guess Joe
Oh.
Dispenza uses some form of
Mm-hmm.
this because our minds are so fucking
Yeah.
powerful. And all of a sudden, my left knee stopped hurting.
Amazing.
But it had been hurting me for months. And I was like, holy shit, I just healed
Yeah.
myself. Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like, we have the ability to do
Mhm.
that. We just doubt ourselves. It's crazy. And so I try to work with other people to give them the tools that I've picked up all along. You know, my toolbox is huge. Like I have a belt and a box. And so I have all this shit that I can
Yeah.
use to help people, to give them the tools to heal
Right.
themselves. So, and of course, it's like Reiki, like you're not going to be able to receive until you're
Right.
ready, right? And so, but if someone's coming to me for a reason and they want, they're sick of like self-sabotaging behaviors and why do I keep doing this? Like these areas of my life are amazing, but this one area I just keep struggling over and over and over. And maybe I can help them look at it from a different perspective, or like maybe I can help them see something that they've overlooked, or maybe they keep telling themselves this story like my knee fucking hurts and I'm like, no, it's not your knee. Like it's
Yeah.
not. Like let's heal
Right.
that. That's just a story you're telling yourself. And so I try to use all that stuff just to, help people live the best lives and live the life that their soul is intended to live on this
Yeah.
journey. Thank
I
you.
could literally talk to you for hours.
I
I
know.
really could.
Me too.
Uh,
You're amazing.
oh, thank you. So are you. So if people are interested in learning more about you or if they want to come to you for those services, where's the best place that they can find you?
So my website is Lauren Gillette, like the razor
Mm,
dot live.
that live? Okay.
So you can just go on my website, read all about it. There's a link in there that sends me an email or something, and we can just go from there. But if you're
Perfect.
interested in working with me, I'd love to talk to you anytime and see if we can get something going. But
Awesome.
otherwise, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me
Oh my God.
on.
Thanks for coming on. I know that your story is going to help people. And I mean, I learned some things from you, you know? So,
Oh, I always learn from you. I
oh,
always love to vibe with people that are cool.
oh, well, I'm glad to be included in that list. So,
You're awesome.
oh, so are you. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. And until next time, everyone out there, stay brilliant.